Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Chris Hammer joining me. Hi Chris.
Hello there, everyone.
Some of you might remember Chris was our author for the day not long ago, so great to have you here chatting with me.
Yep, lovely to be with you.
So, just a little bit about Chris for those who might not know you. Chris is a leading Australian crime fiction author. His novels have been praised for their sense of place, their intricate plots, and their colourful characters and their emotional depth. And his latest mystery is The Seven, which was just published. Oh, is my copy going to show you? And I can see you've got some on your bookshelf there as well. So that was published in October 2023 and has already been longlisted for the 2024 Indie Book Awards. And it's the third in the series featuring the adventures of homicide detective Neil Buchanan and Ivan Lukic. And also, a lot of you might know as well, Scrublands. I haven't. Is it on Netflix? Scrublands.
No, it's on Stan.
Stan, okay.
Stan in Australia.
So I've got it on my. I read the book, but I really want to watch it as well. So some of you might have seen it on Stan. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Just wondering if you wanted to start off by telling us a little bit about the Seven.
Oh, okay. So it is the third in the series with Neil and Ivan, but you can absolutely read it as a standalone book. You don't have to read the previous books.
And I have to say, I've done that as well. I've read two of them, but not the first one.
Yeah, and that's kind of typical, I think, for a lot of crime fiction series, because if there's a crime and there's a mystery, you need to tell the reader, what's happened by the end of the book, okay? So it's the same characters, but they're standalone mysteries. So you can absolutely read the Seven without reading the Telltale Treasure and Dirt. So the setup is like this. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but the book is set in an irrigation area out in Western New South Wales called Wurundjeri. Now, it's a fictional irrigation area, and it's unusual because it's been developed by settler families 100 years ago, these seven powerful families. And over time, everyone's done well, all the irrigation farmers, everyone, except no one's done quite as well as these seven original families have become more wealthy and more powerful over time. So the book starts with the discovery of the body of a local accountant called Athol Haslark. His body's found rather sensational circumstances, but in an irrigation canal in this Wurundjeri irrigation scheme. Now, Athol's noteworthy for a couple of things. He is a member of one of these seven families, a rather junior member, but he's also the town accountant, which is interesting because accountants know all sorts of secrets about all sorts of people because they can see what your financial situation is, right? So the two homicide detectives, Ivan and Nell, are sent down to investigate the murder. And soon enough, they start uncovering all sorts of secrets in this town. And there's a threat of violence. There's real violence. They realise a lot's going on here. And it's a bit of a race against time, if you like. They understand that the killer or killers are still out there, and they're racing to catch them before they kill again. So as far as that goes, that's a typical, I guess, kind of crime fiction book. But at the same time, we've got two other storylines interwoven into that present day narrative. Both of them are set in Wurundjeri, but one is in 1993, so 30 years ago, and it follows a local lad called Davis. He's just 21, but he's the heir to one of these powerful families, seven families. He's been sent off to Melbourne University to get a bit of polish, I guess, before he, takes over the estate. He's been doing a history degree. He's invited to do an honours thesis. So he thinks, what a better project, what better thing to do than research the history of this irrigation scheme. And so he does. But lo and behold, as he researches it, he starts uncovering a few secrets, a few skeletons in a few cupboards, put it that way. And then the other story is set way back when the scheme is first being proposed, way back before the First World War, back in, like 1913. And it's told through the letters of a young girl, a 15-year-old servant girl, who's been sent off to be a servant to one of these grazing families, the settler families there. And so that covers the years in the lead up and during the First World War. So as a reader, you're reading these three storylines that are interwoven, and at first they've got nothing in common except for the location. But as the book goes on and the story unfolds, the reader starts seeing the connections between these three eras, back in before and during the First World War, the 1990s and the present day, until by the end of the book, all the storylines kind of mesh together. It's like the fate of the three characters is connected, and you understand how they're connected. That's probably about as much as I can tell you without, giving too much away.
Yeah, and I have to say that's probably one of the things that I loved about the book, was the three storylines. I was really intrigued, and also, like reading it until you work out where they all join, because they have to join up together somehow in the end. But so I really enjoyed that. But I'm interested to know, how do you write the three storylines? Do you have them written separately, or you write them intertwined as you go?
Really much back and forth between the two. So amongst crime fiction authors, you often get this divide between the plotters and the pantsers. And the plotters are the people who plot everything out in advance, and then they start writing a narrative. And then you get the pantsers, and they're the ones who write a book by the seat of their pants. They have an idea, they start writing, but they themselves don't really know where the book's going to end up. And I'm very much a pantser. And so with these three storylines, I kept changing the stories, what was going to happen. Like, there's more than one crime, there's more than one mystery in this book, right? And so as the story evolved and began, in a sense, to reveal itself to me as the author, there'd be times when I just stick to one of these periods, one of those stories, just to make sure that it was internally consistent and that the language was the same. So the present day story is told through the eyes of one of the homicide detectives, Ivan Lukic. It's told in the present tense. The story in the 1990s is told in the past tense. The story way back, more than 100 years ago, is told through the letters of this young girl.
Yeah, Bessie. And that was interesting, the different ways you told them.
So they're all stylistically different. So I go and just work on one of those storylines and make sure I was internally consistent. But then I have to marry them back together, because I didn't want one storyline to get ahead of the others, and I didn't want one, say, lagging behind. So it was a lot of backwards and forwards until I got, until hopefully they kind of blend in fairly seamlessly. And, it works for the reader, because that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah. And got quite a few people watching, so just wanted to say to those watching, if you've got a question for Chris, please type them and I can read them out. I've got a few comments and questions already. Kim, she says she loves your books. She already has the 7 ready to read. And I don't know if I told you, Chris, but the 7 is actually one of our book club reads. I think later, like not for a while, probably later next year, near the end of the year. So a lot of people will be getting your book ready to read for the book club read.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And Yvonne says she loves your books and she has the 7 to read over Christmas.
Yep.
Belinda said she's read and loved all of your books and she's yet to watch the TV series for Scrublands, but the trailer looks really good.
Yeah, it's good. If you see it, you'll like it. it's similar to the book in some ways, but some bits are quite different. So it's like a different experience. I really enjoyed it. Really sort of hooked me in.
Yeah, well, I was interested. What did you have? What sort of involvement did you have in it, or if any?
I didn't really have much involvement at all. I was consulted every now and then, but not that often. And I was quite happy with that because it's a different medium, and I wanted the writers in particular to have the freedom to reimagine the story. And I think that's worked well. I'm really happy with the outcome. It's a great production company, Easy Tiger, that's done it. The principal writer, Felicity Packard, is a friend of mine. And she's done great work in the past. So I knew it was in safe hands. So I just, I've been concentrating on, writing the books, and they can do the TV. That works for me.
Yeah. And will there be more of your books that you think will become a TV series?
Yeah, so they're already developing the next book in that series, the Martin Scarsden series that features a journalist who's the main protagonist. The next book, Silver, they're working on that already. I don't think it's been, they have this term greenlit, or, they're getting the green light, which means, essentially means they've got the money to go into production. So they're not quite there yet, but they're working towards that. And I think Scrublands has been very successful, so I'd be surprised if it didn't go into production. And meanwhile, the same company has optioned Treasure and Dirt, which is the first in this series. So look, it's looking very promising.
Yeah, no, that must be great. Yeah. And Kim wonders, how did you come up with the idea for each of the 3 storylines in the 7?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is, in some cases, I don't know. So what I was saying, I'm a bit of a pantser. So I start writing and I'm not entirely sure where the story is going. But I realise I start with the setting. It's very important for me. So with the 7, the idea of this irrigation area, I think that came about my previous book, The Tilt, is set on the Murray River in a real place, the Barmer Mill Forest. And so it's got the river in it. I was thinking of river type ideas, and I had this idea for a story about water trading. And it didn't fit that book, didn't fit the Tilt, but it stayed with me. So I had that idea of a bit of a theme, if you like, or an issue, water trading. And then I thought setting. The last one was in a very natural landscape, in a sense, a national park. So I thought irrigation area. So I usually start with a setting, an issue, and then the crime. So I was thinking, I think the idea of, an accountant being murdered was a good one, because accountants know so much about us. Like, particularly think of a small town, the local accountant's going to know a lot about people and, how wealthy are they in debt, are they in trouble, all that sort of stuff. And then the final thing I think I start with now is I'm trying to work out who's going to tell the story. So in this book, the present day story is pretty simple. It's going to be one of the detectives. In the 7, it's Ivan. In the last book, The Tilt, it was Nell. He's sort of, the 2 homicide detectives. So in this book, Nell's not a point of view character, but she's very present. She's a very important part. It's just the stories. But then I've got to decide who's telling the story in the other eras. So that's where I start from. And I think what I'm really trying to do is build a world, build a mystery, almost like cast a spell. So there's a setting, there's a character, there's a mystery, there's the writing, the pacing. And I'm inviting the reader into this world, saying, set aside what you're doing, your daily life, and come with me into this world, and let's go on a bit of an adventure. So I think that's my kind of starting point. And after that, I write lots, I throw out a lot, I'm trying to work out what's happening as I'm writing, but that's the starting point.
And talking about building a world and everything, what I love in your books, I don't know if people are going to be able to see, but might not let me show it. It's going to disappear. Oh, there we go. The maps.
Oh, yeah, the maps.
Yeah, the maps. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so all of my books have a map in the front. So if you don't read the books, but you listen on the audio books, sometimes you don't get the map.
Yeah.
So if you want to see it, just Google my name. I've got a website. All the maps are on the website.
Oh, okay.
You can click on them. You can download them. You can print them off. So that can be helpful. And maybe some ebooks you don't get the map either. So if that's the case, just Google me. You'll find the maps. You can print them off. So the maps started when I was doing that first book, Scrublands, and it's a fictional town. And so I just started drawing a map for my own reference because I didn't want the town to sort of change shape, if you like. I didn't want the post office to be next to the bank in the first chapter and across the road in the fifth chapter and, 20-minute walk away, by the 23rd chapter. So it was just a reference point for me to keep the book consistent. But then finally, when I finished the manuscript and handed it to an agent, just at the last moment, I thought, well, I'll include the map, my crude hand-drawn map. And then we gave it to the publisher and we decided we'd get a real artist to do the map. So they look fantastic. And it worked really well in Scrubland. So it's become a bit of a thing of mine. Every time I do a book, I do a map as I'm writing it for my own reference. But then we get this wonderful artist, Alexander Potocznik, who does this kind of 3D stylized maps. So I absolutely love them, but that's the story behind the maps.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to draw everyone's attention to as well is the cover, the house on the cover. Like I just, it's not gonna be happy for me, is it? You have to show your. Oh, here we go. If I put it up again.
There we go.
Yeah. Right. So just sort of draws you in, doesn't it?
So all the covers of my books in Australia have got the same designer, a guy called Luke Horsby, and he did that. And originally, I had this, and it absolutely looks like a house that's in the book called Three Wells. It's an old squattocracy homestead just outside this irrigation scheme, and I had it originally. I wrote the book and I had the old sort of homestead, but I had two of these towers, one at either end.
Oh, okay, yep.
And then I saw the cover, and this is a photo of a real house. I forget, it's somewhere in Australia. And it just got this one tower. So it was right as I was doing the last edit for the books. So I changed the description of the house in the book to match the cover.
To match the cover, yeah. No,
and it's the house that that character I said, Davis. It's the storyline in the 1990s. That's the place he lives, or that's his family estate, if you like.
Yeah, and it certainly looks like I know it's about the 7 families, and it certainly looks like one of the families that would live in the sort of house that they would live in. Sharon wonders what you like to read yourself. I'm wondering if there might be something you've read lately that you want to recommend to us.
Look, it's almost like part of my job. I read quite a lot of crime fiction because, well, one, I enjoy it, but I'm seeing a lot for, to get maybe to endorse a book, the line on the cover, great book, Chris Hammer. I'm on a panel, like at a writers' festival with other crime writers. So I want to read their books, or I'm interviewing them. I'm helping launch. So I've read a few lately. How to Kill Your Husbands by Jack Heath. I helped him with an event in Canberra a couple of weeks ago. That's a great book. It's a crime fiction, but it's kind of funny. It's got a real mystery to it. It's like one of those golden age detective books where you're really trying to work out what happens. So that's a good one. A couple of others I read lately. Now, these books haven't been published yet, but they're both friends who sent me their books for whatever reason. So, Body of Lies by Sarah Bailey. Now, a few of your readers, if you're into Australian crime fiction, you know Sarah. She wrote The Dark Lake.
Yeah.
And a series of books since then. So this is, I think, her fourth or fifth book. And it, again, features her detective, Gemma Woodstock, who's a fantastic, because she's really complicated. She's a bit kind of messed up. She's certainly she's not Sherlock Holmes, put it that way. She's not in any ways perfect, but she's very relatable. And that's called Body of Lies. So that's out in a couple of months' time. And another one I read, also out early 2024, is All the Words We Know by a writer called Bruce Nash. Both these books are published by Allen and Unwin, which is my publisher. Then this book by Bruce, it's a story of an old woman, and she's in a retirement home, and it's almost like she's got dementia. She can't remember things. She can't remember her passwords, all that sort of stuff. But she begins to suspect that something is wrong. And she starts investigating. So it's not a Richard Osman sort of comfy crime book. It's a bit more gritty than that. But it's a really good read. It really sucks you in. So that's a couple I would recommend of crime fiction books.
Yeah, thanks for those recommendations. Kelly says she's a huge fan of you, and she wonders who your favourite character is.
Oh, in the books. I tend to like them all. I'm always a bit upset when I have to kill someone, even though obviously they're not real. I do think in this series, I really like Nell. So she's one of the detectives. She's very feisty. She doesn't take a backward step. She's like physically brave. She's kind of emotionally brave, but also she's vulnerable. She's emotionally vulnerable, and she gets things wrong. She messes up, and sometimes it's like her job's on the line or whatever. So yeah, at the moment, I really like Nell.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Yvonne says she hopes that you're planning on coming to Ballina or Lismore again.
Oh, look, I love to. One of my favourite parts of the world. So, yeah, would love to anytime. But I live in Canberra, so in the middle of Canberra winter, Ballina or Lismore, anytime.
And Belinda and Kim have also said how much they love the maps.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know if I said to you a successful writer, what would that mean to you?
Look, most writers in Australia, most published authors, earn maybe, there's a survey, so it's something like $12,000 a year from them writing. Of course, that's not enough to live on. So most authors that you're reading are usually doing a full-time job. So often it's not they've got young kids and whatever to look after. And then they're doing their writing in their spare time, late at night, early mornings, stolen hours on the weekend, that sort of thing. So my idea of a successful author is someone who can write full-time, whether that's because their books are earning enough or they've got some grant money or whatever. So my definition of a successful author is someone who can just do it as a career, as it were, or, they don't have to hold down a separate job. It's still quite rare and quite a privileged position in Australia to be that sort of successful writer. So I'm fortunate. So by my definition, my own definition, I'm a successful author because I can do it full time.
Yeah. Well, no, that was a great answer. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. Looking forward to having the Seven as our book club read in later next year. Maybe we'll be able to get you back again and join the discussion then. Um, and looking forward to reading more of your books and also to watching Scrublands on Stan.
That's great. Look, thank you for having me on. Thank you for everyone who's joined. It's such a busy time of year, so much to do. So thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah, same to you. And I hope everyone goes out and buys the Seven for their Christmas presents.
Good idea.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.